Hey, my beautiful family. Welcome to Love and Twilight. Before we dive in, I need just 5 seconds of your time. If this story moves your heart even a little, please like, comment, and subscribe. That's how YouTube knows you want more stories like this, and it helps our storytelling family grow. I've cut the fluff, trimmed the fat. And now, let's get straight to the heat of it. The Orion and Vale headquarters slept under moonlight. Charlie wasn't supposed to be there. He rarely came back after hours. But tonight, insomnia had driven him. That, and an unfinished sketch that wouldn't leave his head. His Italian loafers echoed across the marble. Then, he paused. A soft voice, muffled, feminine, frustrated. Ugh, these uniforms, always hugging in the wrong places. He narrowed his eyes. The voice was coming from behind the half-cracked door of the wardrobe lounge. That room was supposed to be locked after 10. He moved closer, slowly, quietly. Through the gap in the door, moonlight spilled in from the domed skylight, and standing in it, back turned, half undressed, was her, Jadwiga, the cleaner, slender, sculpted, bare from the waist up. The embroidered company uniform clung to her hips, half pulled down, no undergarments beneath. Her back glistened with a mixture of sweat and shimmer from fiber dust. Her bra dangled from a chair. Her hands were reaching for her spare shirt, breasts rising as she leaned. Charlie's breath caught. She hadn't seen him yet. But he had seen too much. His jaw clenched. He should walk away. Instead, he pushed the door open. It creaked. Jadwiga froze, hands still stretched for her shirt. She turned. Her eyes widened. "Sir," she gasped, grabbing for the shirt. I didn't know anyone was still here." Charlie stepped in, closing the door behind him without breaking eye contact. Click. Silence swallowed the room. He crossed his arms, cool and unreadable. "I should fire you." Her hands trembled, then stilled. Her eyes narrowed. "Then do it," she said quietly. Charlie tilted his head, examining her. So bold, so proud. Not a single trace of fear in her voice. That did something to him. He exhaled, voice lowering. "Need help with that?" Time stopped again. The shirt slipped from her grip. Her chest rose and fell with uncertainty, or desire. Then, slowly, she nodded. Charlie stepped forward. The shirt lay on the floor between them like a dare. He picked it up, fingers brushing hers. She didn't flinch. He circled behind her, slowly, eyes tracing every inch of exposed skin. His voice was husky now. "You always change here?" "Sometimes," she whispered. "When I sweat too much. These uniforms are suffocating. No cameras in this lounge. That's why." He lifted the shirt, holding it open. Arms up. She obeyed. As the shirt slid over her skin, his knuckles traced her sides. Her breathing hitched when he grazed just beneath her breast. He didn't apologize. She didn't stop him. "I should leave," he muttered. "But you haven't," she replied. He leaned closer, voice brushing her ear. "No, I haven't." Her hair smelled like lavender, her skin like heat. He turned her gently. Their eyes locked. Something between defiance and desire passed through hers. She didn't blink. He didn't ask again. He kissed her. Hard. It wasn't soft. It was the kind of kiss that comes from two people who've held back for far too long. His hand gripped her lower back. Her shirt rose again as her body melted into his. She gasped against his mouth. He swallowed it. She clutched his collar, pulling him down further. Her thighs slid between his legs. His control slipped. This wasn't supposed to happen. This couldn't happen. But it was happening. He lifted her effortlessly onto the dressing table. Buttons popped. Her bare legs wrapped around his waist. Their breaths collided like thunder. Clothing was never designed for lust. It got in the way. They tore it off each other like it owed them a debt. Her voice was husky when she whispered, "You don't even know me." His reply was hoarse. "Then give me something to remember." And she did. Again and again. Afterward, they sat on the floor, backs against the dressing mirrors. She wore his shirt. He held a cigarette he never lit. Neither said a word. She broke the silence first. "You still gonna fire me?" He glanced at her. Shirt too big, legs bare, eyes gleaming. "You think I could?" She smiled. "Just a little. You should." Probably. Silence again. She stood, collected her bra, pulled up her uniform pants, slowly, like she knew he was watching. This never happened, she said, heading toward the door. Jadwiga. She paused. Come back tomorrow, he said, standing. To clean? To distract me. She gave him a look over her shoulder, unreadable, unforgettable. And then she was gone. It was after midnight again. Charlie sat behind his desk on the 32nd floor, the city glittering outside his window. His pencil tapped against a blank page. He wasn't sketching. He wasn't thinking. He was remembering the kiss, the sweat on her collarbone, the way her fingers had curled against his chest. He had told himself it was a mistake, a lapse in judgment, a single night fueled by stress and lust. But he couldn't forget the way she walked away without looking back, like she had nothing to lose and everything he wanted. He stood suddenly, walked out, took the elevator down past the showroom to the service corridor. The same door, the same skylight. She wasn't there, not yet, but he waited. And at exactly 12:17 a.m. she entered, carrying her cleaning cart, her eyes tired, hair tied up. Jadwiga stopped when she saw him. Are you going to stand there every night? He didn't answer, just stepped aside to let her pass. She pushed the cart in, glancing at him only once, then began her routine, wiping mirrors, folding fabrics, adjusting mannequins. Charlie watched. Minutes passed. He finally spoke. I thought you weren't coming back. I didn't say I was. Then why are you here? She paused, looked at him with that same fearless stare. Because I wanted to see if you'd still be. Later, the room was dim. No words now. Charlie held the shirt again, the same one he'd helped her into 2 nights before. Arms up, he said. This time she didn't hesitate. The fabric slid over her arms slowly. She leaned in closer than necessary. You always help women dress, sir. Only when I want them to stay. Jadwiga smirked faintly, stepping back, shirt half-buttoned. You're crossing a line. I know. Is it worth it? He stepped forward again, fingers brushing the collar of her uniform. Let's find out. She didn't back away. Her breath was steady. Her chin tilted slightly. Say it, she whispered. Say what? Say what this is. He didn't say anything, but his hands moved with purpose. He touched her like he was crafting something fragile and rare, like she was silk and he was the thread. Their lips met again, slower this time. She didn't moan. She sighed, low, deep, as if relief had found her. They didn't rush this time. His fingers moved like a designer fitting a model, tracing lines, measuring breath, adjusting rhythm. Her hands slid under his shirt, mapping muscle like blueprints. She straddled his lap on a velvet bench, uniform unbuttoned, hips rolling slow and patient. Her forehead pressed to his. They breathed in sync, and when he entered her, it wasn't a collision. It was a surrender. They moved without frenzy, like two people rewriting the rules. After, he traced circles on her bare spine with his finger. You don't have to say anything, she murmured. Good, he said. Because I don't know what I'd say, then don't ruin it. Okay. They dressed in silence. As she slipped her bra back on, he caught a glimpse of a tattoo beneath her rib. A needle and thread. You sew? He asked. She pulled her shirt down. Used to. Before cleaning became more stable. You were a designer? She didn't answer. He didn't push. Before she left, she paused at the door. What happens if someone finds out? They won't. That's not an answer. He crossed to her, stopped inches away. I'm not ready to answer that. She nodded, then opened the door and disappeared into the corridor. Charlie didn't move. Not for a long time. The next evening he called the cleaning department. Send Jadwiga to wardrobe lounge after close. There was a pause on the line. Sir, she already works that shift. Good. The next few nights blurred like spilled ink on fabric. Charlie kept the showroom open late. His calendar cleared itself between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. No explanations given. Security didn't ask questions. No one dared. And Jadwiga, she showed up. Always. No words were spoken about what they were, only where and how. One night, he was sketching beside the cutting table when she walked in. She wore a black tank under her uniform, that clung to her curves like it was tailored. She dropped her cleaning gloves on the bench without looking at him. "You've been avoiding the elevator cams," she said flatly. He smirked, still sketching. "I prefer the stairs. Makes me feel like I earned it." "Earned what?" He didn't answer, just tossed the sketchbook aside and met her gaze. "Lock the door." She did. That night, it was the cutting table. She laid back on the silk samples. He knelt. She gasped, fingers gripping fabric, hips arching against his mouth. He took his time, like he was tasting her soul. The next night, the full-length mirror in the dressing suite. She braced against it, palms smudging glass. He stood behind her, blazer off, shirt unbuttoned. "You're distracting," he growled. "Then stop calling me," she moaned. "Can't." Then came the night with the sewing machine. She was adjusting a hemline just to pass the time. He stood behind her, watching the curve of her back. He reached forward, ran his fingers down her arms, guiding them to the machine. "You've done this before," he said. "In another life." He pulled her hair aside, kissed her shoulder. "I want to see that version of you." She turned, brow raised. "I'm not a model." "No," he said. "You're the blueprint." And then he was kissing her again, urgently, like inspiration striking fabric. They made love right there, the machine humming underneath, echoing their rhythm. Days turned to weeks. She started leaving traces. A bobby pin near his desk. A lip print on a coffee mug. A sketch he found of a maternity dress in the trash, her lines confident, curves bold. He recognized the brilliance. One night they laid on the office floor, tangled in throw blankets and leftover runway samples. She rested her head on his chest, fingers tracing the center of his bare torso. "Why me?" she whispered. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he tilted her chin and kissed her slowly, not with hunger, but reverence. "You make me forget I'm a goddamn king," he said, "and I only want to kneel for you." She didn't respond, not with words, but her arms wrapped tighter around him. Her body shifted over his. She kissed him like a prayer and rode him like a queen. He let her, every single time. But it wasn't just physical anymore. He started asking about her life. "Where did you learn to sew?" "My mother. She worked for a bridal shop." "Why'd you stop?" "Because dreams don't pay rent." And sometimes he just listened, like when she told him about her sister, the one who got sick, or her father, the one who left. No pity, no fix. Just him, holding space, quietly falling deeper. They never talked about the future. They didn't talk about the company. And they especially didn't talk about what would happen if anyone found out. But one night, as she was buttoning up, Charlie spoke softly. "You were never just a cleaner." She smiled faintly. "And you were never just a boss." They stared at each other across the dim light. No need for declarations, only truth, breathless and simple. It became routine. At midnight, the real world disappeared, replaced by the hum of cleaning carts and the deep hush of designer corridors. Jadwiga no longer knocked. She'd enter quietly, and Charlie would be waiting. Sometimes in his office, other times in the fitting room, always alone, always expecting her. The tension had evolved, no longer tentative, but territorial. When their eyes met, it wasn't surprise. It was hunger, one that fed on silence, glances, and the taste of things they shouldn't have. Tonight, it was the backroom archives. No mirrors, no ambient lighting, just raw cement, cardboard boxes of rejected fabrics, and the musky scent of old leather portfolios. She stepped in, hair still damp from a quick rinse. He stood at the far end, jacket off, tie loose, sleeves rolled up. "This is where you bring your real treasures," she teased. "Only the ones I shouldn't touch." She walked toward him slowly, hips swaying like she knew what it did to him. "So, what am I tonight, Charlie?" He met her halfway, fingers in her hair. "You're the reason I'm losing control." And then their mouths crashed together. The clothes peeled fast. No teasing, no soft warm-up. His hand grabbed her thigh, lifting her easily onto a metal rack. She wrapped around him like second skin. Their bodies slammed against cold steel, and it didn't matter. He bit her collarbone. She scratched his back, and when he thrust into her, it was raw, unfiltered. Their gasps echoed off concrete. Afterward, she lay panting on a velvet roll. He stood above her, shirt unbuttoned, chest heaving. "This is madness," she whispered. "Say stop and I'll stop." She stared at the ceiling. "I don't want you to stop." He lowered beside her, brushing her damp temple with his lips. "Then I won't." Another night, the dressing showroom. He watched her from behind as she cleaned the mirror wall, legs in those tight company pants, hips swaying with each wipe. He locked the door. She saw his reflection approach. "Don't you ever knock? You don't want me to..." She turned, arching an eyebrow, then slowly bent over the makeup table. "Then shut up and handle it." He did. Fast. Hard. With her mouth muffled in her sleeve and her body shaking around him. It was always like that. Impulsive, greedy, unrelenting. And yet, beneath the chaos, something tender. Like when he stayed after and helped her fold towels. Or when he memorized how she took her coffee. Black, 1 sugar, no cream. Or the time she showed him an old design sketch she'd hidden in her bag. A flowing evening gown with delicate embroidery and a slit that dared the world to blink. He stared at it. "This is yours?" Was. Before all this. "It's brilliant." She shrugged, took it back. Brilliance doesn't matter when rent's due. But he remembered the lines. They haunted him. Still, the sin of it all hung heavy in the air. She wasn't his girlfriend. He wasn't her savior. They had no title, just the after-hours heat and the lie they told themselves no one would find out. But behind the passion was a slow-growing ache, an ache neither of them named, because naming it would make it real, and real was dangerous. The clock read 2:03 a.m. Their bodies lay tangled in silk swatches on the floor of his private lounge, the city skyline glowing faintly through the wide glass wall. Charlie was on his back, shirt halfway on, chest slick with sweat. Jadwiga was curled beside him, her leg draped across his torso, fingertips tracing invisible lines along his stomach. Neither of them spoke for several long minutes. Then, quietly, "Why me?" Charlie turned his head. Her eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. "What? Out of all the women you could have, out of everyone in your world, why me?" The question hung there, honest, unapologetic. She didn't blink, and he didn't rush his answer. Instead, he shifted, sitting up slightly, resting on one elbow to look at her. "You think I haven't asked myself the same?" "That's not an answer." "No," he said. "It's the beginning of one." He stood and walked toward the drink cart in the corner, poured water into 2 crystal glasses, handed her one. She sipped, still waiting, still watching him. He didn't break eye contact. "I live in a world built on illusion, Jadwiga. Everything polished, everything rehearsed. And I'm not. You're real. You look at me like I'm a man, not a brand." She lowered her glass. "Because you are just a man." "Not to them," he muttered. "To the board, I'm the legacy. To the press, I'm the perfection. To investors, I'm the guarantee." He sat beside her again, rubbing the back of his neck. "But when you say my name, just Charlie, it feels like freedom." She listened, quietly, then leaned in. "That's sweet, but also sounds a lot like projection." He chuckled, shaking his head. She traced the rim of her glass, voice softer now. "You ever think we're just playing pretend?" "Every night. And I don't care. You should..." "I know." He reached for her hand, held it gently. "I should want someone safer, simpler." "You do." "No, I want you," he said, "because you make me feel like I'm not drowning in this empire I created." Her fingers squeezed his, but she didn't smile. Instead, she pulled away and stood, slowly buttoning her blouse. "You want me because I remind you of your humanity. That's not a bad thing." "No," she said. "It's just not love." That hit him, harder than he expected. "Is that what you want this to be?" She didn't answer, just grabbed her coat. At the door, she paused, looked back at him, shirt unbuttoned, brow furrowed. "I won't be your escape, Charlie." "Then what do you want to be?" She sighed, eyes heavy. "Something that matters." Then she left. He sat there, alone, long after the door clicked shut. And for the first time since it began, he felt cold. The next night, she didn't show up. Neither did the one after. Charlie stayed late anyway, staring at old sketches, hands idle, thoughts loud. When his phone buzzed with a meeting reminder, he ignored it. When his assistant knocked, He didn't answer. When the fashion critic from New York Times requested a statement, he declined. He didn't want to talk. And yet, 3 days later, just when he started to think maybe she was gone for good, he found a note under his office door. It was simple, one line, written in delicate handwriting. "You make me forget I'm invisible." He folded the paper carefully, tucked it inside his blazer pocket, and smiled. Orion and Vale's Fall Fashion Week was less a show, more a spectacle. The runway was built like a blade, sharp, chrome, dramatic. Cameras flashed like fireworks. Celebrities lined the front row. Champagne trickled into flutes backstage. And Charlie, he stood at the edge of the chaos with a blank face, arms folded, eyes distant. Everything was moving, makeup artists, stylists, models. But his mind? Frozen, because she hadn't replied to the note he left after hers. And he'd left 3. "Mr. Vale," his assistant whispered beside him, "press is asking if you'll take interviews after the showcase." "No. The Paris syndicate is in the lounge. Not now. Should I cancel the after party?" "Yes." He walked off. Nobody followed. He didn't care. Backstage, Jadwiga moved quietly. She wasn't a guest. She wasn't even officially allowed there. But her old badge still worked. No one noticed the cleaners. She weaved between racks, her eyes scanning for him. And when she saw him, she froze. Because he was standing alone, next to his own dress design, fingers pressed, to his temple, as if holding the weight of 1,000 expectations. He looked tired, but still devastatingly sharp in black on black, as if darkness had been tailored just for him. She didn't call out, just stood behind the curtain, and waited. He felt her before he saw her. That scent again, lavender, heat, memory. He turned, and there she was, in her faded black uniform, a cleaning rag tucked into her pocket. "You look," he exhaled, "like you shouldn't be here. Neither should we." Silence. Then he stepped forward. "You came. I shouldn't have, but you did." He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. They slipped behind the hanging gowns into the designer's storage loft, quiet, hidden above the chaos. He kissed her, softly at first, then harder, then with everything he'd been holding back for nights. Her shirt came off. His belt hit the floor. She climbed onto a stack of silk-lined boxes, wrapping herself around him like armor. He buried his face in her neck. "I missed this," he muttered between kisses. "You missed me," she corrected. "All of you." She moaned low in his ear, tilting her hips until he filled her completely. They moved in rhythm, silent, careful, desperate, trying not to be heard, but not really trying. Every creak of floorboard under them was a reminder. This wasn't safe. It was survival. Downstairs, the show began. Music thumped. Models strutted. Cameras flashed. But in the hidden loft above, the man who designed the show was unraveling in the arms of the woman no one would ever call couture. Later, as he buttoned his shirt, Jadwiga leaned back against the wall, hair messy, lips swollen, eyes unreadable. "What happens after this, Charlie? We do it again tomorrow?" "That's not an answer." He stepped closer, tucking her hair behind her ear. "Then let me ask you something." "What?" "Would you let me kiss you in public?" She blinked. "No." "Would you hold my hand if the cameras were on us?" "Definitely not." "Would you wear my name, knowing they'd all judge you?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "Not yet." He nodded, didn't flinch. "Then I'll wait." The fashion world was still raving about Orion and Vale's fall collection. Critics called it bold. Fans called it revolutionary. Orders flooded in from Milan, New York, Dubai. But inside the headquarters, something colder was spreading. Silence, suspicion, and whispers. It started with the security team. A late-night cleaning schedule that didn't match badge logs. A pattern of lights left on in Charlie's office well past midnight. Unusual elevator activity between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. Someone flagged it. Then HR got curious. Then 2 board members asked quiet questions that no one could answer. Jadwiga felt it first. The way receptionists stopped greeting her. The sideways glances in the employee lounge. Even the head custodian, who once shared meals with her, had started logging her hours more strictly. She told herself it was paranoia, until she walked into the break room one night and heard it. Must be nice cleaning your way into couture. Bet the CEO's desk isn't the only thing she's polishing. She froze in the doorway. Didn't blink. Didn't cry. She turned and walked out without a word. Later that night, she found Charlie in the fabric archives, browsing lace samples for the spring line. He looked up as she approached. "You're early. They know." His jaw tightened. "What do you mean?" "Someone's talking. HR. Security. People are watching me. Let them watch." "Easy for you to say. You're at the top." "You think they won't come for me too?" She crossed her arms. "No. I think you'll be protected, and I'll be discarded." He stepped toward her, but she backed up. "Don't," she whispered. "Jadwiga, what are we even doing?" Silence. He didn't have an answer, because he wasn't sure anymore. The next morning, Charlie sat alone in the boardroom. The table stretched long, glossy, spotless. He stared at a printed report, unauthorized access logs, after-hours cleaning personnel. It had her name, time-stamped, repeated, like a countdown. His phone buzzed. Text from Helena, head of HR. Meeting request RE, internal concerns. 4 p.m. today. Mandatory. He didn't reply, just closed the document, and stared at the glass wall where the city moved on without him. That evening, Jadwiga finished cleaning early. She left through the basement exit. No badge scan, no elevator. She didn't want to be tracked anymore, and she didn't text him, didn't call. She went home, alone, where it was quiet, and where no one looked at her like she didn't belong. Charlie stayed at the office, for hours. He ignored his meetings, ignored his messages, until finally, at 1:43 a.m., he stood in the empty wardrobe lounge, staring at the spot where they used to meet. He looked at the mirrored wall, then at himself, then turned off the lights and walked out. The next morning, the entire executive floor felt colder. The usual rhythm, stylists, assistants, interns buzzing around, was off. People whispered in hallways instead of exchanging greetings. Doors stayed closed. Meetings were rescheduled. And every employee, from janitor to junior creative, noticed one thing: Charlie Vale had gone silent. No floor walk, no design reviews, no press statements. He was in his office, door shut, watching a video on loop. Security footage. The clip wasn't graphic, but it didn't have to be. It was black and white, slightly grainy, taken from an angle outside the showroom. Time-stamped 2:09 a.m. It showed a woman slipping into the corridor from a restricted wing. Hair messy, shirt loose, her face barely visible. But he recognized her instantly, and so did the HR department. Earlier that morning, 7:52 a.m., Jadwiga was called to HR. No warning, no prep, just an email titled, "Immediate attendance required, policy violation." She stood in front of the glass conference table, back straight, hands folded tightly. Across from her sat Helena, head of HR, flanked by 2 legal reps and a silent executive board observer. No one smiled. Helena pressed play. The footage ran for 18 seconds, then paused, then rewound. "That's not me," Jadwiga said softly. "You're sure?" "There's no face." Helena leaned forward. "You accessed the building that night. Keycard log confirms it. You were in a restricted wing without authorization. I was cleaning at 2:09 a.m. Silence. Were you alone?" Longer silence. "I see," Helena said, pen tapping. She slid a paper across the table. "You're being offered an early contract release, with severance, provided you sign this non-disclosure agreement immediately." Jadwiga read it once, then again. Her hands didn't shake. Her eyes didn't tear. She picked up the pen and signed. Charlie wasn't in the room. He didn't know about the meeting until it was over. By the time he reached the HR floor, she was already gone. Office cleared. Badge deactivated. Her locker in the lower level? Empty. No note. No goodbye. Just absence. He stormed into Helena's office. "Who authorized that?" "The board." "Why wasn't I consulted?" "You're CEO, not head of HR. And the footage made things complicated. You had no right." She signed the NDA. "You cornered her." Helena leaned back. "Mr. Vale, this is a billion-dollar brand. Scandals are not tolerated, not even when they're wrapped in midnight romance." That stung. He said nothing more. He just walked out, straight to the executive elevator, and disappeared for the rest of the day. That night, he returned to the same place it started, the wardrobe lounge. He stood in the center, staring at the chair where her bra once hung. Everything looked the same, but it wasn't. His assistant texted, "Should I cancel the quarterly interview with Forbes?" "Yes." "And the Paris buyer preview?" "Yes." "Is everything all right?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked into the design studio, pulled out one of her old sketches, the maternity dress she thought he'd thrown away. He pinned it to the inspiration board, then lit a cigarette, and sat down, alone. She stood in front of the locker one last time. It was quiet in the lower wing, the kind of quiet only heard in places where people are used to being unseen. Jadwiga folded her cleaning gloves carefully, placed them inside the empty space, and shut the locker door with a soft click. No photos, no perfume, no goodbye note, just clean metal and the echo of everything she had erased. Charlie burst through the back hallway like a man chasing his breath. His coat was unbuttoned, tie gone, eyes wild. By the time he reached the lower corridor, she was already halfway to the exit. Jadwiga. She stopped, didn't turn, just stood there, arms by her side, waiting. He stepped closer. "I didn't know what they were doing. Doesn't matter." "It does. I would have stopped it. You didn't." Finally, she turned. Her eyes weren't red. There were no tears. That made it worse. "I never wanted your money, Charlie. I know. I didn't want your pity. You don't have it. Then what did I have?" He stepped closer, voice low. "Everything." She looked away. "Then why does it feel like I lost?" He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out the sketch she once tossed in the trash. "I kept this." "Why?" "Because it reminded me that you were never supposed to be on your knees with a mop. You were supposed to be in front of a camera, in charge." She took the paper gently, studied it for a moment, then folded it. "That girl's gone." "No," he said, shaking his head. "She just needs space to breathe." "You think love is enough to fix this?" "No. But it's enough to try." She looked up at him, the sharp lines of her cheekbones lit by the flickering hallway lights. "Come with me," he said. "To where? Anywhere. Away from all this." "You'd leave it all behind?" "In a heartbeat." "You say that now. Say it again when I'm not CEO anymore." That caught her. "Wait, what?" "I've drafted my resignation. I haven't signed it yet, but I will." She stared at him, as if trying to see through the layers of guilt, success, and complication. "Charlie," she whispered, "you don't know what I've already lost." He didn't ask, didn't push, because her voice was shaking. She stepped toward the exit, hand on the door. He reached out. "You don't have to go." "Yes, I do. At least let me drive you." "No." "Why not?" "Because if you drive me," she whispered, "I might let you in, and I can't survive being let down twice." He lowered his hand. Her fingers brushed the door handle. "I'll find you," he said. "Don't. I mean it. Don't find me until you've figured out who you are without the power, without the throne." She turned the handle. "And if you do find me," she paused, "you better come with nothing but the truth." Then she walked out. Charlie stood in the hallway. No cameras, no board, no reporters. Just him, and the ghost of her footsteps. Later that night, he stood alone in his penthouse, unclipped his watch, unfastened his cufflinks, removed his nameplate from the office door with his bare hands, and tossed it in the trash. The small clinic sat between a laundromat and a pawn shop. No glass doors, no glossy brochures, just peeling walls, soft lighting, and the tired kindness of underpaid nurses. Jadwiga sat in the examination room, gown loose around her waist, fingers pressed to her belly. She hadn't spoken much since signing the NDA. She hadn't needed to, because her body was already speaking. 2 weeks late. Nausea every morning. Then, the final clue, the craving for chalk. That one made her laugh, just a little. The nurse entered with a soft smile and a clipboard. "Miss Jadwiga?" "Yes?" "Your test came back positive. No shock." She just nodded. "Would you like to see the ultrasound?" She hesitated, then nodded again. The screen flickered. Static. Beeps. Black and white pulses. Then 2 small flashes of motion. 2. "Twins," the nurse said warmly. "Fraternal." Jadwiga stared at the screen, not blinking, not breathing. "Are you all right?" She nodded again, even though everything inside her felt like it had cracked wide open. "Do you want to call someone?" the nurse asked gently. She could have, but she didn't. Later, she walked home, arms wrapped around herself, scarf tucked high to her chin. The streets bustled with people, couples holding hands, businessmen yelling into phones, mothers with strollers and messy buns. She walked among them like a ghost with a secret. No Charlie, no empire, just her, and 2 flickers of life growing silently inside her. In her apartment, she sat on the edge of the bathtub, toilet paper in one hand, her phone in the other. She stared at his name in her contacts. Charlie Vale. Her thumb hovered over the call button, but she didn't press it. She turned the phone off and dropped it in the laundry basket. Weeks passed. Her body changed. She started craving oranges, then toast at midnight, then tuna with hot sauce. She got a job at a local fabric shop, folding cotton bolts and pretending not to stare longingly at the sketchbooks on display. Every evening, she came home exhausted, feet swollen, ankles tight, back aching. But she never complained, not once, because each night, when she lay on her side and closed her eyes, she could still hear those 2 soft heartbeats from the monitor, loudest sound in her memory. She found out the genders accidentally. The nurse slipped. "She's growing strong, and so is her brother." Jadwiga laughed, then cried. She bought 1 blue blanket and 1 pink one, named them quietly in her head. Laverne, Shirley, both middle names her mother used to dream about. She didn't follow fashion shows anymore, didn't read tabloids, didn't ask about Charlie. If he was looking for her, she didn't know. And if he wasn't, it was better not to know, because if he wanted her, he would have found her. And if he didn't, then she was already enough for these 2 growing souls. One night, around 5 months in, she stood in front of her cracked mirror, belly round beneath her t-shirt, fingers pressed gently to her skin. "You 2 were made in heat," she whispered, "but you'll be raised in love." Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. Not anymore, just smiled, and whispered a prayer they'd never know what it meant to feel unwanted. The new Orion and Vale headquarters was a fortress of elegance. Tall glass panels, marble floors, touchscreen elevators. A rotating exhibit displayed sketches from Charlie's past collections. Fashion magazines called him untouchable. Investors praised his elevated vision. Reporters hounded his team for interviews, calling him the man who turned heartbreak into high fashion. But the truth? Charlie didn't feel anything, not even when they called him a genius. In the months since Jadwiga vanished, something inside him calcified. His jaw stayed clenched. His sketches got darker, lines sharper, colors colder. No more softness, no more blush tones or flowing silks. He designed with vengeance, and the world called it brilliance. His assistant, Drew, noticed first. "Sir, you haven't eaten all day. Coffee's enough. You canceled the wellness shoot with Vogue. Reschedule it. They said it's the 3rd time you've, then canceled them permanently." Drew said nothing else, just left the almond croissant untouched on his desk. Charlie stayed in the design suite late every night, alone, sometimes staring at the monitor, pretending to work, other times opening her old sketch on his tablet, the maternity gown she once thought no one saw. He never edited it, never added a line. It remained untouched, like a shrine. The board noticed his shift in tone. So did the press. Charlie Vale's fall line takes a darker turn. From romance to rebellion is the CEO hiding heartbreak. No more softness from the man who once stitched silk like poetry. He didn't reply to any of them, didn't deny it, didn't care. At night, he drank alone on the penthouse balcony. Whiskey, neat, a blanket of city lights beneath him, hollow and glimmering. He never brought anyone home, not even for appearances. One night, Drew entered the lounge with hesitation. "Mr. Vale, there's something you should see." He handed him a folder. Inside, a plain envelope. No stamp, no return address. Inside that, a photo. Jadwiga, hair tied up, wearing a worn sweater, holding a tiny onesie in one hand, and a visible baby bump. It wasn't paparazzi. It wasn't posed. It was personal. Charlie's hand trembled. "Where did you get this?" "A courier. Said it was from a mutual friend." Who? Didn't say. Charlie stared at the photo for a long time. Is it recent? A month ago? Maybe less? His throat tightened. Lungs paused. He nodded once. Thank you. Do you want me to track her? Charlie looked down at the picture again. 2 hands holding the fabric, and one truth undeniable. She was carrying his children. He didn't say yes, didn't say no, just held the photo like it might break if he blinked. That night, he didn't drink. He didn't sketch. He sat on the couch, barefoot, legs sprawled, photo beside him. And he whispered into the quiet, I'm still yours. The apartment was small, tucked above a discount bookstore on a street where the air always smelled like rain and roasted corn. Jadwiga called it hers, not because it was beautiful, not because it was perfect, but because it was safe, quiet, and unknown. She'd painted the second bedroom yellow. Not soft yellow, bright yellow, like sunflowers and hope. 2 cribs stood side by side under the window, one with blue sheets, the other with pink. Above them, hand-drawn letters were taped to the wall. Laverne Shirley. No last name, just names full of heartbeats and innocence. Every night she sat between the cribs on a folded blanket, back against the wall, one hand on each belly as they rolled and kicked in rhythm. She talked to them softly. You don't need a crown to be royalty. Your mama didn't come from much, but you'll never lack love. You are not mistakes. You are masterpieces. The landlord, Mrs. Juru, was a quiet Nigerian widow with thick glasses and kind eyes. She never asked questions, only brought hot yam porridge sometimes and left it on the doorstep with a sticky note, for the little ones. And their queen, Jadwiga cried the first time she read that, then ate every spoonful. The fabric store job didn't pay much, but it came with access to scraps, leftover chiffon, abandoned satin, cotton with character. She collected them quietly. Late at night, when her back hurt and her ankles throbbed, she sewed tiny booties and bibs, 1 pair each. She didn't have much, but she had thread and love. That was enough. There was no baby shower, no gifts, no one to read nursery books aloud while she picked names. But still, she smiled every morning, even through the back pain, even when her balance faltered, because her belly grew with purpose. One Sunday afternoon she walked into a second-hand baby shop. A red dress on a clearance rack caught her eye. Size, newborn, gold buttons, slight shimmer. She picked it up slowly, held it to her chest. A memory surged, the gala, that night, that red dress, his face when he saw her, the babies in the stroller, his voice, broken. They're mine? She blinked and let the dress drop. Not today, not yet. Back at home, she found a letter in the mail slot. No return address, just her name in bold script. Inside, a check, a large one. No note, no signature, just the amount. She folded it once, twice, then tore it into pieces and dropped it into the trash. She didn't need money. She needed peace. That night, she journaled. You will never be his bargaining chips. You are not secrets. You are not leverage. You are mine. She closed the book, kissed her belly twice, then laid down on her left side, one hand on each growing curve. The nursery was quiet, but her heartbeat was steady, and for the first time in a long while, her dreams were gentle. The Orion and Vale Fall Gala was the crown jewel of the fashion season. Private chauffeurs lined the avenue. Security flashed gold badges. Red carpet stretched for miles, shimmering under a ceiling of suspended chandeliers. Celebrities posed. Editors scribbled. Photographers snapped endlessly. And somewhere in the swirl of it all, she stepped out of a taxi. No fanfare, no press, just Jadwiga, backlit by the moon, pushing a double stroller. She wore a red dress, not store-bought, handmade. Satin, deep neckline, sharp lines around the waist to embrace the curve of motherhood, a slit that made silence follow her into the room. Her gold heels clicked like thunder against the marble. Heads turned, eyes whispered, whispers turned into frozen stares, because beside her, nestled in a ruby-red stroller, sat 2 sleeping infants, one wrapped in a blue blanket, the other in pink, curls soft, lashes long, skin glowing under the ballroom lights. Their presence wasn't loud. It was unignorable. Inside the ballroom, Charlie was laughing politely with two French investors. Wine in hand, bow tie crisp, mask of composure flawless, until his eyes landed on her. Everything stopped. The conversation, the jazz music, even the air seemed to freeze in place. Jadwiga stood across the ballroom, tall, poised, devastating, and right beside her, their children. He set the wine down slowly, walked toward her. Every step felt like gravity shifting. By the time he stood in front of her, the crowd had gone quiet, watching, pretending not to. Jadwiga, he breathed. Charlie. He looked down at the stroller, back at her. They're mine? She nodded once. Laverne and Shirley, she said. Born 5 months ago. He stared at them, eyes full, mouth parted. Why didn't you tell me? Because you already had your world. I was building it for you. She held his gaze. No fear, no softness. And I was building this, without your empire. His fingers twitched like he wanted to reach out. But he didn't. I would have been there. I know, she said. That's why I couldn't tell you. Why? Because if you showed up, I might have let you stay, and I needed to know I could do it without you. He blinked slowly, pain crawling into his throat. You shouldn't have had to, but I did. She looked down at the twins, still sleeping, still perfect. And I did it well. Silence. Then, softly, can I hold them? Not here. She gently turned the stroller and walked away. Not fast, not dramatic, just steady, unbothered, in control. Charlie didn't chase her, not yet, but his chest ached in places even money couldn't reach, because no applause had ever made him feel this small, or this awake. The city didn't sleep after a fashion gala. It shimmered in celebration. But Charlie didn't stay for the interviews, or the champagne, or the applause echoing in the corridors of Orion and Vale. He left through the back entrance, jacket slung over one shoulder, driver waiting by the car. Where to, sir? He didn't answer. He wasn't sure, because he couldn't stop seeing them. 2 tiny faces, 2 tiny curls that matched his mother's hair, 2 eyes. That held her fire. He knew. He knew the moment he saw them. Jadwiga sat by the window in her apartment, feeding Shirley a bottle while Laverne slept in a bassinet nearby. The red dress was now folded neatly over the chair. Her heels lay kicked off at the door. Her breath was steady, but her mind, a whirlwind. Seeing him had shaken something loose, something she'd braced so hard to keep contained. He looked older, not in age, but in ache. She'd studied his eyes during that brief exchange, and she'd seen it, grief, the kind a man hides behind a billion-dollar smile. She didn't regret walking away, but she did wonder if he would come, if he'd knock, if he'd kneel, or if, once again, silence would win. He showed up the next night. No driver, no security, no umbrella, even though it was raining. Just a man, in soaked loafers, standing at her door, holding nothing but his heart. She opened it slowly. Hi, he said, voice rough. I don't know what to say first. Then don't. She stepped aside. He walked in. The apartment was warm, small, smelled like chamomile and baby lotion. And when he saw the nursery corner, the 2 cribs, the alphabet stickers, the faint glow of a nightlight shaped like a cloud, he choked. He sank to his knees between them and reached. Tiny fingers wrapped around his thumb. One set, then another. Laverne drooled. Shirley yawned. And Charlie Vale, CEO, visionary, legend, wept, silently, shoulders trembling, head bowed. Jadwiga stood behind him, arms folded, heart tight. He looked up at her. You don't have to say anything, she whispered. But he did. I missed everything. She swallowed hard. You can start now. He picked up Shirley first. She made a soft noise, then curled against his chest like she'd been waiting for this moment. Then Laverne. The boy gripped his collar and drooled on his blazer. Charlie laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. You got big heads, he whispered. Just like your mama. Jadwiga smiled despite herself. They're heavier than they look. So was losing you. Their eyes met. No drama, no speech, just truth between them. Later, she made tea. He stayed on the floor, both babies in his lap. And when one started crying, he panicked. "What do I do?" She chuckled. "Bounce and hum." "Hum what?" "Anything but corporate buzzwords." He laughed again, and rocked, and hummed an off-key lullaby, and Shirley fell asleep on his chest like she was always meant to. The aftermath of the gala rippled fast. Within hours, photos leaked across gossip blogs and fashion columns. But it wasn't the gowns or celebrities that grabbed headlines. It was the shot of her. Red dress, gold heels, 2 babies in a crimson stroller, and Charlie Vale, frozen across the room, staring at her like time had stopped. Toishi trended by morning. Vale layers started 5 minutes later. And then the questions came pouring in. Does Charlie Vale have secret children? Is the mystery woman his wife? Has the king of fashion been dethroned by fatherhood? Orion and Vale's PR inbox exploded. So did Charlie's phone. Investors demanded statements. Reporters camped outside headquarters. And the board? They were furious. Inside the building, everything felt off. Designers whispered. Staff avoided eye contact. Even Drew, Charlie's right-hand assistant, walked lightly around him. Charlie didn't flinch, didn't run. He walked straight into the conference room the next morning, hands in his pockets. Yes, they're mine. The silence was instant, sharp, uncomfortable. He looked around at the faces, the suits, the silent judgment. And no, he added, I'm not apologizing. A woman from legal leaned forward. Mr. Vale, this complicates our branding. My branding is human. You've built a fantasy, the unattainable man, the king of restraint, and restraint cost me everything that mattered. Someone from the board stood. Charlie, you need to think carefully. You're not just a man anymore. You're an institution. He gave a half smile. Institutions don't get drooled on by their children in a red stroller. He left the room. No resignation letter yet, but everyone could feel it in the air. The music had changed, and so had the man they thought they controlled. Jadwiga, meanwhile, stayed home. She didn't read the headlines, didn't open the links her former coworkers sent her, didn't reply to the influencer who DM'd for an exclusive interview. Instead, she baked banana muffins, folded laundry, rocked Shirley in her arms while Laverne babbled on a blanket. That night, she heard the knock. Charlie stood at the door with a grocery bag in one hand and a baby carrier in the other. You brought supplies? Organic formula, diaper rash cream, and fruit snacks. You forgot wine. No alcohol around the babies. Wow, look who's growing. He stepped in, set everything down, then turned to face her fully. I told the board today. Told them what? The truth. Which part? That I'm not their king. I'm just a man who's finally not ashamed of what he loves. Her eyes softened. And what do you love, Charlie? He didn't hesitate. You, them, this. She looked at him a long time, then nodded. Okay. He blinked. Okay. You can stay tonight. Later, with both twins asleep in the apartment lit only by the kitchen lamp, they sat on the floor, legs tangled, backs against the couch. You sure you're ready for this? She asked. No. Good. Because neither am I. They laughed quietly, then held each other. As the music of fame and pressure faded outside, something new took its place. Not loud, not glamorous, but real. The quiet hum of peace, and the steady beat of something worth staying for. The rain hadn't stopped for hours. It came in steady sheets, soaking collars, flooding gutters, muffling the usual chaos of the city. But Charlie didn't notice the cold or the weight of the water in his shoes. He stood on the steps of Jadwiga's building, shivering, one hand in his pocket, the other cradling a small box wrapped in brown paper. No driver, no suit, just a soaked dress shirt clinging to his chest, and a hope that maybe she'd open the door. He knocked once, waited. He could hear the soft hum of music behind the wood, some lullaby, maybe, or an old jazz record. Then, footsteps, then quiet, then the door cracked open. Jadwiga stood there, barefoot in gray sweatpants and a tank top, hair wrapped in a scarf. A burp cloth hung over one shoulder. She blinked once, then again. Are you insane? Apparently. She looked him over, raindrops sliding off his eyelashes, his jaw clenched against the cold. You could have called. I didn't want to give you the chance to say no. She opened the door wider. He stepped inside, puddles forming instantly under his shoes. "Towels?" he asked, smirking. "You'll earn them." She disappeared into the hallway. He toed off his shoes, peeled off the wet shirt, and stood bare-chested in her living room, arms crossed, goosebumps rising. When she returned with towels, she tossed one at his chest. "I thought you were done chasing ghosts." "You're not a ghost. You're the only real thing I've ever wanted." She paused, then pointed toward the couch. "Sit." He did. She wrapped another towel around his shoulders, then sat across from him, legs curled under her. "So what now?" she asked. "I don't know. You always know. Not with you." That silenced the room for a long moment. "I quit." "The board?" "Gone." "I stepped down officially this morning." "You actually did it?" "Yeah. I thought if I lost you and still kept everything else, it wouldn't be worth anything. So, what are you now? Unemployed?" "No," he said. "Creative director. Jadwiga's assistant." She snorted. "You'd be terrible at taking orders." "Not from you." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Let me in, Jad, not just through this door. Into this life." Silence again. Only the gentle creak of the crib from the nursery. "I don't need saving, Charlie." "I know, and I won't let the kids be used to fix your guilt. They won't, but they can help me become something I never learned how to be, which is steady, present, real." She stood and walked to the nursery door, peeked inside, then turned. "They've started recognizing voices. Do they know mine?" "Not yet. Then I have some catching up to do." She left the door open. He took it as an invitation. He walked into the nursery slowly, reverently. 2 cribs, 2 tiny souls. He crouched beside them, whispering names like confessions. "Laverne," the baby boy kicked. "Shirley." The girl let out a sleepy sigh. He placed a soft kiss on the edge of each crib, and when he stood, Jadwiga was right behind him. Their hands met. No resistance, just fingers sliding together like they'd always belonged. The apartment was dim except for the warm nightlight in the nursery. Charlie sat cross-legged on the rug, his back against the wall, a bottle in one hand, and Shirley resting gently in his arms. Her tiny fingers clutched the collar of his hoodie as she suckled, eyelids fluttering with sleep. He stared at her like she was a miracle he'd never deserved. Across the room, Jadwiga stood in the doorway, watching, measuring, trying not to feel too much. "She usually falls asleep halfway," she whispered. "She's strong," he replied softly. Like her mother. She walked in, settled on the edge of Laverne's crib, gently rocking it. Laverne made a sleepy coo and turned his cheek to the side. "I don't know what I'm doing," Charlie confessed. "Neither do I," she said. "But here we are. Tell me what you need." "Consistency. I can give that. Patience. Learning. And time," she added. "Yours or mine?" "Ours." She finally looked at him, really looked. His face was softer now, not the face of a CEO, not even of a man trying to impress her, just a father holding his daughter. He burped Shirley gently, then handed her off. Jadwiga placed the baby in the crib, tucking the blanket over her tiny legs with practiced grace. They stepped out quietly, closing the door halfway. In the living room, she poured chamomile tea into 2 mismatched mugs and handed him one. They sat on the couch side by side, neither rushing to speak. "You never asked why I left without telling you," she said. "I didn't think I had the right." "You didn't. But you do now." He turned slightly toward her. "Why?" She exhaled. "Because I wanted to see who I was when I wasn't wrapped up in your world." "And who are you?" "Still figuring it out. But I like her. She's brave. She's incredible," he said. She smiled, just a little. "She's also tired, and still healing. Then let me be part of that healing. Not as an apology. No, as someone who wants to earn a place, not take it." The silence between them was not heavy. It was full, like breath before a kiss, like peace. She rested her head on his shoulder. He didn't move, didn't push for more, just stayed there, solid, warm, real. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sound of the city softened to a lull. And inside, 2 parents sat together, not in passion, not in regret, but in something far rarer, mutual rebuilding. Charlie broke the silence first. "I'll find us a place. Something with more space." better light, room to grow, and a washer that doesn't rattle like it's possessed. Deal. He looked down at her. I'm not promising perfect. Good, she said. Because perfect doesn't raise babies. Present does. He kissed the top of her head. She closed her eyes. Not because she was surrendering, but because she felt safe enough to rest. The apartment was quiet again. The babies had settled. The lullaby playlist had stopped playing. And the only sound now was the soft clink of mugs being placed in the sink. Charlie stood barefoot near the kitchen counter, glancing toward the hallway like he wasn't sure where to go. Should I sleep on the couch? Jadwiga dried her hands on a towel. Do you want to? No. Then why ask? Because I don't want to assume. Good, she said, walking past him. Because my bed is small, and you snore. I don't. Yes, you do. She disappeared into her room, leaving the door ajar. He waited 2 beats, then followed. Her bedroom was modest. Cream-colored walls, a small window, a bookshelf with half-read novels. No designer lamps, no silk sheets, just clean cotton, soft pillows, and the faint smell of baby lotion. She slid into the left side, pulled the blanket over her waist, and turned off the light. Are you coming, or do I need to send a formal invitation? Charlie didn't hesitate. He climbed in slowly, careful not to make a sound. The bed dipped beneath his weight. She didn't look at him. Not yet. Hello, my magnificent family. I know you're enjoying this story. Don't just sit back, like, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss a single of this love stories I share to you every day. This isn't like before, she said in the dark. I know. We're not rushing anything. I know. And if you think this is your way back into my heart, it's not, he interrupted. Silence. Then, I never left it. He reached across the space between them, hand resting near hers but not touching. She turned her palm, allowing his fingers to slide into place. Their grip was soft, but secure. They stayed like that for a while. Then, slowly, she turned toward him, eyes adjusting to the dark, familiar shadows painted across his face. Her hand moved to his chest, over his heart. Still yours, he whispered. She didn't respond. She kissed him instead, gently at first, then with something deeper. Not lust, not nostalgia, but acceptance. Their clothes didn't fall off in a rush. They peeled away like layers of a story long paused. His lips mapped her collarbone. Her fingers dug into his hair. She kissed the scar on his shoulder. He trailed kisses along the curve of her hip. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. When he entered her, it wasn't frantic. It was grounding. They moved slow. Breaths in sync. Bodies in rhythm. Forgiveness wrapped in skin. Love rediscovered in silence. And when she came, softly, quietly, she buried her face in his neck, biting down to stop from crying. After, they lay tangled in the sheets. Her head on his chest, his arm around her waist, both of them wide awake, hearts finally still. We made 2 people, she said. We can remake each other too. That's not how people work. Then let's just start where we are. She nodded into his chest. Where we are is tired. He chuckled. Outside, the streetlights flickered. Inside, 2 bodies rested. No contracts, no cameras, no expectations, just presence and peace. And a quiet promise spoken without a single word. Morning crept in through the window. Soft golden light kissed Jadwiga's collarbone as she stirred beneath a thin bedsheet, blinking slowly into consciousness. Charlie was already awake, watching her, one arm behind his head, the other resting on the curve of her hip. For a moment, they just lay there. No rush, no need to speak, until a faint whimper from the nursery broke the stillness. She rose first, slipping into one of his shirts, the one with a slightly torn collar she used to tease him about. He followed, barefoot and shirtless, hair messy, eyes still heavy with sleep. In the nursery, Shirley was squirming. Laverne blinked up at the ceiling, already babbling nonsense at the morning sun. Jadwiga moved to the crib like a rhythm she'd danced for months. Charlie stood in the doorway, arms crossed. How do you look so calm at 7 a.m.? This is late, she smirked. You've missed all the real chaos. Teach me. You sure? I want to learn. She handed him Shirley. He hesitated, but took her, held her gently. She stared up at him with sleepy eyes, then promptly sneezed in his face. He laughed. She giggled. Jadwiga watched, heart tight in her chest. She'd imagined this so many nights, but reality, it was better. Once the twins were fed and changed, Jadwiga spread a soft quilt over the nursery rug. She lay on it first, then motioned, "You're not escaping this." Charlie joined her, settling beside her, Laverne between them. Shirley sat propped against her mother's thigh, chewing on a plastic giraffe. "We're not going anywhere today," Jadwiga murmured. "Good," Charlie replied. "I don't want to." He turned to her, his eyes more awake now. "You're beautiful." "I'm in spit-up and baggy eyes." "Exactly. Beautiful." She smirked. "You always this cheesy?" "Only when I'm desperate." "For what?" "You. Still. Always." They lay in silence again, until Laverne rolled onto his stomach with a proud grunt. "He's trying to crawl," she said. "You sure he's not just dramatically flopping? That's your son, by the way." He laughed, then leaned over and kissed her shoulder. Once, then again, slower, hungrier. She turned toward him, eyes locked, heartbeat rising. The babies giggled between them. But they were in their own world now. The real world could wait. Jadwiga pushed him back onto the rug, straddled him slowly. Charlie's hands found her thighs, her waist, her back. She pulled the shirt over her head. Nothing underneath. His breath caught. "You keep doing that," he whispered. "What?" "Making me fall harder." She leaned down. "Then don't get yourself." They made love right there, on the nursery rug, between their sleeping babies, in the most human way possible. No candles, no background music, just soft moans, tangled limbs, and raw honesty. She bit his shoulder as she came. He gasped her name when he followed, and when it was over, they lay back, flushed and breathless, her head on his chest, his fingers playing with strands of her hair. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered. "Making love? Pretending this is temporary." He looked at her. "Serious now. Then let's stop pretending." "You sure?" "You're the only thing I'm sure of." Outside, a delivery truck honked. Inside, 2 babies slept. And between them, a man and woman who once broke each other quietly began to stitch something new. The sun had begun to dip, casting a golden warmth through the nursery window. Jadwiga stood by the kitchen counter, rocking Shirley gently in her arms while Laverne lay on a padded mat, gurgling at the ceiling. Charlie was at the sink, sleeves rolled up, washing bottles like he'd done it all his life. But his hands were moving slower now, not from fatigue, from the weight of something unspoken. "You've been quiet since the rug," she said softly, not turning around. "I've been thinking about..." He dried his hands, walked over, leaned against the fridge. "The people I lied to, the man I pretended to be." She looked up. "You didn't lie to me, Charlie. Didn't I?" She tilted her head. "Maybe you hid, but you didn't lie." He took Shirley from her, kissed the crown of her head. "I want to talk, all of it." "Then let's sit." They settled into the living room, both babies in bassinets close by, white noise hum in the background. No champagne, no staged lighting. Just 2 parents and a past they could no longer avoid. "I was terrified," he began. "Of what?" "Needing someone, of being dependent. You weren't raised for love. I was raised for legacy." He looked at her. "But you gave me something scarier." "What's scarier than power?" "Peace. And I didn't know what to do with it." She nodded slowly. "I was scared too." "Of me? Of being erased?" She didn't cry. Her voice didn't tremble. She just told the truth. "I've worked jobs where I wasn't seen, loved people who didn't know how to hold me. So when you said I should fire you that night, something inside me flinched. And then I asked if you needed help, and I said yes." They both smiled at the memory. Charlie reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "What's that?" "Your sketch." He handed it to her. The maternity design. Crisp lines, clever slits, real structure. Her eyes widened. "You kept this?" "Pinned it to my board the day you left." "Why?" "Because even when you disappeared, your vision didn't." He paused. "And I want to help you make it real. Jadwiga After Dark. For women like you, mothers, warriors, designers, leaders. Her hands gripped the paper tighter. I never thought you saw me as more than a story you couldn't stop reading. I did, but I was too wrapped in my own narrative. And now? He looked at her without blinking. Now, I want to be a chapter in yours. The babies stirred. Laverne let out a soft cry. Charlie stood first, scooped him up, bounced him gently. You've got your mother's lungs. And your appetite, she added. He smirked. He's going to outgrow me in 2 years. Jadwiga folded the sketch and placed it on the coffee table, then stood in front of Charlie, their son between them, their truth hanging in the air. I'm not going to hide anymore, she said. Then let me help you shine. Not behind me, beside you. He kissed her, not desperate, not apologetic, just full of every unsaid word finally given voice. The photo was her idea, not for press, not for announcements, just for them, their first family portrait. No stylists, no makeup artists, just a rented studio corner above a flower shop with soft morning light, neutral backdrops, and a photographer named Dana who charged by the hour and never asked personal questions. Jadwiga wore a flowing cream dress that draped off one shoulder, barefoot, natural curls, no jewelry but a thin gold band on one finger, one Charlie had slipped there the night before, with no proposal, no speech, just a whispered, "This is a promise, not a purchase." Charlie wore linen pants, a rolled-up shirt, and held Shirley in one arm like she'd been part of him forever. Laverne sat in Jadwiga's lap, one sock missing, fingers shoved in his mouth. They weren't posed. They weren't polished. They were themselves. And for the first time, that was enough. Dana clicked the shutter again. Okay, now look at each other. They did. Charlie grinned. Jadwiga rolled her eyes. You're smirking. I'm happy. You're smug. Same thing. Click. Another moment frozen. Another truth captured. Later, outside the studio, they sat on a nearby bench eating pastries from the shop below. Powdered sugar dusted Shirley's chin. Laverne dropped half a croissant down Charlie's shirt. Jadwiga laughed so hard she had to wipe tears with a napkin. A few passers-by glanced their way, whispering. Someone even held up a phone. Charlie noticed, but didn't flinch. You care? Jadwiga asked between bites. About them seeing me like this? Yeah. He looked at her. No, this is the only role I've ever wanted to be known for. What's that? Yours. She leaned over and kissed his cheek. The powdered sugar smudged. He licked it off and made her laugh again. Later at home, they reviewed the portraits on Dana's laptop, the babies looking in opposite directions. Jadwiga mid-laugh, Charlie staring at her like she hung the moon. She scrolled slowly, then stopped at one photo, a quiet one. All four of them, Jadwiga holding Laverne, Charlie holding Shirley, their foreheads resting against each other, not smiling, just present. This one, she whispered. Yeah, print it big. Frame it, gold. Put it where? Everywhere. He paused, looked at her. You think we'll last? We already did, she replied. The moment we chose each other again. A knock at the door pulled them from the moment. It was Drew, with flowers, and a contract. We have our first buyers meeting. They want to preview Jad. Jadwiga blinked. Already? 3 luxury boutiques, 2 maternity networks, and Vogue requested a quote. She looked at Charlie. He didn't say a word, just stood and started changing Shirley's diaper. You're not coming? She asked. I'll be here when you get back. This one's my client today. She laughed, tears pricking her eyes. She kissed his forehead, then bent and kissed each baby's cheek, then stood tall. Let's go launch something that actually matters. The Orion and Vale boardroom had never felt this quiet. 12 chairs filled, 12 faces unreadable. And at the head of the table, Charlie Vale sat, no longer in designer armor, but in an open-collar shirt and a calm that unnerved every person in the room. He placed the envelope on the polished surface like it wasn't heavy with finality. That's my official resignation. No one moved, not even to touch it. The head of legal blinked first. You're stepping down. For her? Charlie didn't flinch. No. I'm stepping up for me. Another board member leaned in. You built this company from nothing. I did, Charlie interrupted. But I don't want to die at the top of a brand that doesn't represent the man I've become. You're the face. Murmurs followed. Pushbacks started. Then Drew, standing at the back of the room, cleared his throat. With all due respect, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vale isn't disappearing. He's evolving. All eyes turned. Drew walked forward, placed a portfolio next to Charlie's envelope. Introducing Jadwiga After Dark, an independent line powered by design, inspired by motherhood, built for real women. Charlie added, "She's the genius. I'm just the student now." One board member scoffed. "You're really handing her the reins?" "No," Charlie said, smiling. "She already had them. I'm just stepping aside so the world sees it." The room stilled, not with defeat, with reluctant awe, because they knew fashion was shifting, and this time it was moving toward truth. Outside the boardroom, Charlie removed his ID badge and dropped it in Drew's palm. "You sure?" Drew asked. "Never been more. And what should I tell the press?" "Tell them the king stepped aside. For the queen." Meanwhile, across town, Jadwiga stood in the heart of a converted design loft. The space was modest. Raw brick, natural light, racks of sketches, rolls of fabric, a whiteboard with Jad circled in red, and in the center, 2 bassinets, because her babies were part of the brand now too. "We ready?" she asked the small team around her. Her old mentor from the fabric shop nodded. A seamstress from her past life gave a thumbs up. Even Dana, the photographer from their portrait session, now stood behind a camera. "Lights up," Dana said. "You're on in 3, 2, 1. Click." The first campaign image, Jadwiga in a sheer wrap gown, baby on hip, barefoot on hardwood floors, eyes full of purpose. She wasn't just modeling. She was leading. Back at the apartment, Charlie cleaned up a spilled bottle, bounced Shirley with one arm, and read Laverne a board book with more sound effects than actual words. "And the cow says, 'What? Huh?'" Laverne blinked, then grunted. "Close enough." Charlie grinned. "I'm not bad at this." His phone buzzed. A message from Jadwiga. "It's live." They chose the one with Shirley. "We're trending." He smiled, then texted back. Laverne just tried to chew the business plan. "I'll file for custody of the whiteboard." He looked at his reflection in the TV screen, hair messy, shirt stained with milk, a pacifier tucked behind one ear, and smiled. Not the rehearsed smile from press events, a real one that said, "I am where I'm supposed to be." 2 weeks after launch, the emails hadn't stopped. Not from buyers, not from fashion editors, from mothers, from nurses working night shifts who cried seeing a dress that actually flattered their postpartum curves, from teachers, from single moms, from CEOs turned caregivers, all writing one thing: "Thank you for seeing me." Jadwiga sat in the office corner of her loft studio, laptop open, babies cooing in the background. Shirley had discovered how to scream just to hear her echo. Laverne was fascinated by zippers. Jadwiga was tired, but smiling, always smiling, because she was no longer designing to impress. She was designing to liberate. The first press interview aired that morning. Charlie had set it up but stayed off camera. Jadwiga sat alone in front of a matte black backdrop, wearing her signature wrap design and minimal makeup. The journalist leaned forward. "You named it Jad. Why?" "Because it's me, but not just me. It's who I became when I stopped shrinking." "Who are you designing for?" "Women who've given life, and women who are trying to find theirs again." That quote trended for 48 hours. Hashtag find yours again. Back at home, Charlie turned off the TV, eyes damp. Jadwiga walked in, holding a fresh sketch. "What's that?" he asked. "You know that dress I wore the first day we met? The one I said didn't meet our brand standard? That one." She unfolded a new version. "Improved, bolder, stronger. I want this to be the next release. We'll call it Cleaner's Edition." Charlie stared at it. "You're reclaiming the memory." "No, I'm rewriting it." He kissed her hand. "Let's put your past on the runway." Weeks turned to months, and Jadwiga After Dark expanded. Maternity gowns with detachable sleeves for breastfeeding, wraps that hugged the waist but loosened at the ribs, bold slits, stretch silks, no apologies. A major magazine declared it. Jad is no longer just a brand, it's a mirror. They hosted their first showcase in a decommissioned train station turned event space. Concrete floors, overhead chandeliers, a runway that led into the audience, not away from it. Every model was a mother. One walked with a toddler on her hip. Another held her pregnant belly with pride. The final walkout? Jadwiga herself, holding hands with Charlie, and behind them, two nannies pushing strollers with Laverne and Shirley inside. The crowd didn't just clap, they stood, and then they wept. Later that night, Jadwiga sat with her feet in Charlie's lap on the hotel balcony. "That was terrifying," she whispered. "You looked divine. I felt sweaty. You felt real." She stared out at the city lights. "Do you think this is what success looks like?" "No." "Then what is?" He turned her feet, kissed her ankles. "It's what this feels like." She rested her head on his shoulder. He curled an arm around her waist. The twins slept peacefully inside. Jad orders were flooding the servers. But the empire, it was here, in silence, in peace, in love. The Jad studio was abuzz. Final fittings, seamstress consultations, a tech team debugging the e-commerce servers. The energy was high, the kind that usually came before a major launch. But for Charlie, everything faded when he looked down. Laverne had let go of the table. Tiny fists curled for balance. Wobbly knees, wide eyes. Then, one step, then another. Jadwiga. His voice echoed over the hum of sewing machines. She came running, scissors in hand. "What?" He pointed. Laverne wobbled again. Then, plop, right on his padded behind. Charlie scooped him up, spun him, laughed like a child. Later that day, at their favorite little cafe around the corner, they celebrated with carrot cake and warm cinnamon tea. Shirley sat in her high chair, poking at a strawberry. Charlie sat across from Jadwiga, still grinning. "You're going to be that dad, aren't you?" She teased. "I already am. The one that cries at every milestone?" "Absolutely." The moment came sooner than they expected. Right there in the middle of the cafe, a quiet space, afternoon lull, low music, and then, cha-cha, silence. Charlie froze. He turned slowly. "What did you say?" Shirley blinked, then smiled. Cha-cha. The strawberry fell from her hand. Charlie dropped his fork. Tears welled instantly. He covered his mouth. She said my name." "That's your name now?" Jadwiga whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. "Forever." He picked Shirley up, buried his face in her curls, and let the tears fall. Other customers noticed. A few clapped softly. A woman across the room whispered, "That's the CEO, isn't it?" Another replied, "No, that's a dad." The video went viral within hours. Someone had recorded it. Charlie Vale, ex-billionaire mogul, crying in a coffee shop because his daughter said cha-cha. No press statement followed. No publicist spin. Just a repost from Jad's official account. The most important title he's ever earned, cha-cha. Later that night, Jadwiga scrolled through the comments. Some laughed. Most cried. Many shared their own stories of first words, late-night feedings, tiny triumphs. It was no longer just a fashion brand. It was a community. Charlie came out of the nursery, shirt stained with milk, one sock missing. Laverne's asleep. And Shirley? Plotting something. I can feel it. They both laughed. Then he sat beside her, scrolling through the same video. "You okay?" she asked. "I thought I needed the world's approval," he whispered. "Turns out, I just needed one little voice." She rested her head on his shoulder. "And now she won't stop saying it. Cha-cha. All day. It's your fault. It's the best blame I've ever received." The next morning, Jadwiga woke up early and found Charlie staring at the printed family photo they'd framed on the mantel. "You're thinking, I'm remembering." "What?" "The day I caught you changing in the bathroom. How clueless I was." She smirked. "You were the definition of emotionally constipated." "Thanks, love." "You're welcome." They both laughed, then fell silent, watching their twins crawl around the carpet, babbling nonsense, smiling at each other. "You think we're ready?" he asked. "For what?" "Everything that's coming." She took his hand. "We already survived everything we weren't ready for." The Eiffel Tower shimmered like a jeweled crown against the night sky. On a rooftop overlooking the Seine, guests whispered in every language. Champagne flowed. Cameras clicked. Paris Fashion Week had arrived, and so had Jadwiga. But no one expected this entrance. She stepped from the elevator wrapped in black silk, her figure regal, her expression unreadable. Every designer paused. Every model turned. She wasn't just the face of Jad. She was the moment. And Charlie? He stood at the edge of the rooftop, arms folded, eyes locked on her, like the entire world had faded around her silhouette. The show hadn't even started, but the room was already breathless. Dana, the lead photographer, gave a subtle nod. It was time. Music shifted, strings and drums, slow and intimate. A long runway stretched under soft amber lighting. But Jadwiga didn't walk it. She owned it. Every step felt like a reclamation of her story, of her power, of everything they'd once called too much. Then, as the music faded, a final spotlight beamed. Charlie stepped forward. No tuxedo, no fanfare, just a crimson garment bag in his hands. I don't have a ring. The crowd fell silent. But I have this. He unzipped the bag slowly, revealing a floor-length red silk dress. Hand-stitched, elegant, timeless. Gasps rippled, not because of the cut, not because of the craftsmanship, but because of the two delicate gems sewn into the bodice, one pale amethyst, one soft garnet. Birthstones, Laverne and Shirley, nestled side by side at her heart. I stitched every inch myself, Charlie said, voice just loud enough for the mic to catch. And when I pricked my fingers, I thought of you, how you bled for this dream, for these children, for us. A murmur of emotion swept through the crowd. He held the dress forward. I don't want to give you a ring to bind you. I want to give you this, to wrap you in the life we built. Will you wear it, Jadwiga? She didn't move, didn't blink. And then, tears, not of sadness, of knowing. She stepped forward, touched the dress, then his cheek. Yes. 1,000 times yes. They didn't kiss, not yet, but their foreheads touched, their hands clasped, and every person in that rooftop showcase knew they weren't watching a proposal. They were witnessing a promise. Afterward, Jadwiga slipped into the red dress in the green room. Charlie helped her zip it, fingers trembling. You stitch this alone? One late night at a time. Why red? Because it's the color of courage, of roots, of home. She looked down at the gemstones. Laverne and Shirley will ask about this someday, and I'll tell them, it's the dress that made your mom say yes. When they re-entered the crowd, hand in hand, a standing ovation rose up, not for a gown, not for a show, but for love, raw, real, and redefined. Back in their Paris suite, Jadwiga stood before the mirror, still in the dress. Charlie curled behind her, arms wrapping her waist. Still want a ring? He whispered. This dress is the ring. You sure? She turned to him, unzipping the back slowly. The lights dimmed. Paris slept, and the couple who met in a dressing room, not through diamonds or declarations, but through fabric and fire, finally sealed their vow. Not with gold, but with skin, sweat, and forever. The red dress hung like a silent oath on the back of the chair. Jadwiga stood by the window of the Paris suite, bare feet touching the cool marble. Floor, the city of lights blinking beneath her like a living heartbeat. She was quiet, not nervous, not unsure, just still. Charlie leaned against the wall, watching her like a man who had finally exhaled after years of holding his breath. You didn't have to say yes tonight. I didn't. She turned slowly, her voice soft. I didn't say yes to a question. Then what did you say yes to? She stepped closer, her fingers brushing the hem of her blouse. One button, then another, to a life. Her voice didn't shake. Her gaze didn't waver. She slipped out of her clothes with intention, not for seduction, but significance. Piece by piece, she peeled away who she had been. The cleaner, the secret, the accused, until she stood in nothing but her truth. She walked toward the chair, picked up the red dress, and let it slide down her body like a final vow. Then she turned to him. Zip me up? He didn't move at first, just stood there, undone by her vulnerability. This wasn't the first time he'd seen her naked, but it was the first time it felt sacred. She wasn't asking to be touched. She was asking to be held. Charlie crossed the room, trembling. He reached for the zipper, the fabric whispering under his fingers. You wore this before the cameras, before the press, for the world. And now? Now, you wear it for us. The zipper closed. But something else opened between them. Jadwiga turned to face him, chest rising. "You still haven't asked." "Because I don't need a wife." He stepped closer, framing her face with his hands. "I need my forever." She smiled, slow, knowing. Then she whispered, "Then come help me put it back on." She reached behind her neck, unzipped the dress again, this time slower, this time together. They moved through the candlelit suite like gravity no longer applied, hands memorizing, lips rediscovering. But not rushed, not desperate. It was choreography, every kiss a confession, every sigh a sacred note. They fell onto the sheets like leaves returning to earth, not lovers seeking release, but souls seeking home. Outside, Paris glowed. Inside, time paused. Afterward, tangled in sheets and heartbeat rhythms, Charlie traced the birthstones sewn into the dress that now rested at the foot of the bed. "Do you think they'll understand one day? The twins? That this was our real wedding?" She smiled against his chest. "They'll feel it, every time we love each other right." And just before sleep took them both, she whispered the words that sealed it all. The sky outside turned the color of desire, deep plum streaked with gold. In the suite high above Paris, silence reigned. But it was not empty. It was heavy, full, sacred. Fog had crept across the tall glass panes, blurred by heat and breath and skin. Inside, two shadows danced, a man and a woman wrapped in each other like silk around a pulse. No music, no voices, just breath. And moans, low, vulnerable, unapologetically intimate. The red dress was halfway down her back, one shoulder bare. The fabric clung to her waist, like it knew it didn't belong on the floor just yet. She stood against the mirror, eyes half-lidded, lips parted. He approached from behind, kissed her spine, slow, from the base of her neck to the curve of her back, until goosebumps bloomed like petals. No words, none were needed. Her fingers reached back, guiding his touch lower, not demanding, just allowing. The dress slipped, down her thighs, pooled at her ankles. He didn't rush to catch it, didn't reach for her. He lowered, onto his knees, not to propose, but to honor. His palms touched the sides of her hips, reverent. He pressed his forehead to her belly, just below the place that once carried their girls. Then he kissed her there. Once, twice, a third time for the future. Neither of them had spoken aloud yet. She placed her hand on his head, a silent benediction, as if to say, "I receive you," just like this. He looked up at her, not as a man seeking approval, but as one who had found his altar. "You're everything," he whispered. Not to seduce, to surrender. She pulled him up slowly. Their mouths found each other's like they were tracing memories across lifetimes. Kisses turned deeper. Bodies melted forward. They moved through the suite, not like strangers discovering, but like lovers remembering. She lay back on the sheets, hair fanned, chest rising. He hovered, paused, waited for the moment her eyes met his. Then, yes, no words needed. His mouth covered hers again. Her legs wrapped around him, a pull more instinct than thought. The world outside faded. Only rhythm remained, and light, and heat. There were no sharp cries or dramatic echoes. Only breath hitching, only hearts colliding in quiet waves. Afterward, tangled and glistening, he kissed her collarbone as if to write vows in skin. She held his jaw, her thumb brushing his lips. Was that worship? She teased, her voice hoarse, tender. He nodded slowly. Every time with you is... She lay there watching him dress. The red dress now draped over a velvet armchair. The stones on the bodice caught the light again, and for a moment, it wasn't just a gown. It was history, legacy, home. He turned at the door, pausing. Room service? Only if they deliver forever. They both smiled. The studio wasn't quiet. It was alive, giggling, crashing, markers scribbling on expensive fabric scraps. And somewhere in the chaos, peace. Jadwiga sat cross-legged on the floor, a sketchpad balanced on her knees. Shirley was in her lap, curls tied into little puffs, clutching a fabric swatch like it was treasure. Laverne, barefoot and determined, toddled across the rug, dragging a measuring tape behind him like it was a royal cape. Charlie walked in with a tablet in one hand, and a toddler clinging to his back. Laverne had somehow scaled him like a mountain before breakfast and hadn't come down since. "We've got a press call with Vogue in 20 minutes, he said over his shoulder. "Then they'll be seeing this," Jadwiga replied, gesturing to the controlled chaos around her. "Is it a playpen or a PR stunt?" "It's love," she smirked. Unfiltered, unapologetic, he set the tablet down, finally prying Laverne from his back and placing him beside his sister. The twins immediately resumed their very important task, stuffing mini fabric balls into Charlie's designer shoes. Jadwiga turned her sketchpad toward him. "Look, a sleek silhouette. A mother's curve celebrated in satin, embroidered not with sequins but initials. LSC, the family line," she whispered. Charlie stared. "It's not for the press. It's not for them." She touched the center of the page, right where the heart was drawn. "It's for us." He walked over, sat beside her on the rug. "You remember when I told you I built this empire?" She nodded. "You lied." "I did." He looked at her. "No walls. We built it. And I didn't even know it until I almost lost you." Jadwiga leaned into him, the twins now draping fabrics over their heads like veils. "You know what I realized?" She said. "What?" "Love didn't ruin my career. It redesigned it." Charlie reached into the portfolio lying nearby and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Not fashion blueprints, a handwritten partnership clause. Signed by both of them. "Equal ownership?" she asked. "Equal voice," he corrected. "And we'll call the next line the family line," she finished. Shirley climbed into Charlie's lap. Laverne wobbled into Jadwiga's arms. There were no seamstresses, no assistants, no ringing phones, only crayons, laughter, and something more durable than fame, legacy, not stitched for Fashion Week, not meant for critics, but for family, and for forever. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the auditorium. Cameras stopped clicking. Even the critics leaned forward, not for trends, but for something else. On the edge of the runway stood Jadwiga, not a model, not a mannequin, a woman, a mother, a maker, and she was wearing that dress, the one that started it all. The red dress, fitted like it remembered her every scar, laced with ruby thread and stitched into the bodice, 2 tiny stones, 1 amethyst, 1 pearl. Laverne. Shirley. She didn't walk with practiced grace. She walked with truth. Every step forward told a story, of when she scrubbed marble floors to survive, of when she gave birth alone, of when she stitched fabric through tears at midnight. And now, she walked the runway she had once only swept. People didn't gasp because of the cut of the dress, or the shoes. They stood because of the woman inside it. The mother, the designer, the rebuilt queen. In the front row, Charlie didn't clap first. He wept first, quietly, then stood. Hands together, no cameras, just him. Laverne on one knee, Shirley bouncing in Claudia's arms. And slowly, one by one, the rest of the audience rose. Designers, critics, celebrities, fashion editors. But their applause didn't echo for the silk. It thundered for the story, the comeback, the love, the choice to live on her terms. When Jadwiga reached the end of the runway, she didn't turn. She stopped, right at the edge, locked eyes with Charlie. "This one's not for sale," she said softly, only his ears catching the word. "Never was," he replied, voice cracked with pride. Photographers snapped frantically, but not a single lens could capture what really happened. Because this wasn't about fabric anymore. It was about family. As she stepped down from the platform, the twins ran to her. Shirley clung to the hem of the red dress. Laverne raised his arms until she scooped him up. She didn't pose. She didn't curtsy. She just held them, red dress wrinkled by tiny hands and finally complete. Charlie wrapped his arms around them both. And for the first time in his life he realized he hadn't built an empire. He had found one. The atelier was quiet now. No runways, no flashbulbs, no applause. Just the slow hum of morning light spilling across a sewing table where a red dress hung, worn, wrinkled, unforgettable. Jadwiga stood beside it, bare feet touching the same floor she once scrubbed. Charlie entered behind her. The twins were with Claudia, napping after their big day. But for now, it was just them, and what they'd built. "You ever wonder what it would have looked like if we'd met earlier?" she asked softly. "No," he replied. Why not? Because then, I wouldn't have been ready. And you don't deserve someone unfinished. She turned to face him. And what do I deserve now? Not perfection, he said, stepping closer, but everything true. He placed a small velvet pouch on the table. Inside, a silver needle. Just a needle. She tilted her head. No ring? No, he smiled. But I'm ready to keep stitching. She laughed gently, then wrapped her arms around him. They didn't promise a flawless future. They promised to keep choosing one another, even when the fabric frays. To keep returning, to keep repairing, to keep believing. Because real love doesn't boast, it builds. In the background, Shirley's giggle floated from the nursery. Laverne's tiny feet thumped the floor in his sleep. And between them all, an empire, not made of walls, but of grace. Final blessing to everyone listening, watching, or reading. Maybe your story hasn't gone as planned. Maybe the seams split where they shouldn't have. Maybe you were cut out of someone else's pattern. But don't give up on love. Because love that's tailored by truth, it doesn't need to be perfect to fit. It just needs to be chosen. Again, and again, and again. If you believe love isn't always perfect, but real love never leaves, comment tailored by truth. Like, share, and subscribe to Love and Twilights, where powerful love stories live forever.